Have you ever, like, fallen into one of those random internet rabbit holes where you just stumble on a conversation and then you can't stop reading?
Oh, all the time.
Well, that's what happened to us, actually,
Uh,
recently.
really?
Yeah, someone on Hacker News was talking about how they're over 40 and going back to school for a second math degree.
Oh,
I
wow.
know, right?
That's impressive.
They were kind of nervous about an upcoming linear algebra midterm, and it sparked this whole huge discussion
About
about how our brains change as we age.
That's a big one.
I know, right? And whether it's really a case of use it or lose it when it comes to our cognitive skills.
Fascinating.
So we thought, let's dive into that. Let's see
Yeah.
what we can learn from these personal experiences and also the science.
Yeah, that thread and the article they linked to had so many different perspectives.
I know, right?
People's personal stories about going back to school, their anxieties about aging, even like bigger societal questions about who has access to education.
It's fascinating. And as always, our goal is to sort of distill it all down, right?
Right.
Find the gems, the real insights that everyone can benefit from.
Absolutely. So we want to, based on what we've read, try to understand how our brains really do change as we get older.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
And maybe even more importantly, what can we do about it?
Right, exactly. Because you're right, that whole you use it or lose it idea is really front and center here.
It is, yeah. It's like our brains like muscles.
Yeah. If we don't exercise them, do they just weaken over time? Or is it more complicated than that?
It's a great question. And, some of the personal stories in that Hacker News thread really leaned into that idea.
Oh, yeah.
The person who started the thread, for example, the one going back for their master's degree, actually mentioned that they felt their brain getting sharper.
Really? Just from studying?
Yeah, just from engaging with the material. It was like a direct experience for them.
Wow, that's encouraging.
And someone else, they were in their 50s, and they were getting a master's degree in math. But not for any job reasons, just for the intellectual stimulation.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
They said they noticed that their thinking had improved, too, like as they wrestled with the coursework.
So those stories definitely seem to support that use it or lose it idea.
They do, right. But then you also have the other side of the conversation.
What do you mean?
Well, there were a lot of comments from people who were worried about their brains declining,
Ah,
like
oh,
as they age,
yeah,
which is a very natural fear, right?
absolutely.
So right away, we have these kind of contrasting perspectives.
Which I guess highlights why it's important to look beyond just those anecdotes, right?
Right, exactly. The personal stories are super valuable, but we also need to look at the broader research.
Agreed. To see what the overall trends are.
Speaking of looking deeper, I thought it was interesting how the conversation branched out into learning itself.
Oh, yeah. Like how?
There was a whole discussion about people's experiences at universities versus community colleges.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, what did they say?
Well, it seemed like a lot of people had really positive experiences at community colleges.
Oh, okay.
They talked about, smaller classes,
Yeah.
more approachable teachers,
Mm,
and homework assignments that really helped them understand the basics.
got it. And what about the universities?
Well, some people found those to be less supportive, especially for intro STEM classes.
Oh, okay.
They talked about being in huge lecture halls, and some of them felt like the TAs weren't as good at explaining things,
Hmm.
and the homework they felt was just like way too hard.
Interesting. I mean, you'd think that the more prestigious universities would have the best teaching, right?
You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But someone made a good point that maybe it's because the focus is different.
How do you mean?
Like maybe research universities are more focused on grad school and, publishing research
Yeah.
than they are on teaching undergrads.
That makes sense. It's like their priorities are different.
Right, exactly. And it's also about what the courses are actually designed to do.
What do you mean?
Well, is it just to make sure students learn the material for that class?
Yeah.
Or is it to prepare them for really intense, like, graduate level work?
I see. Yeah. Those are very different goals.
They are, right.
Yeah. And that can lead to very different experiences for the students.
Totally. And there was also a whole debate about the difficulty of homework.
Oh, yeah. Like how hard should it be?
Exactly. Some people were saying it should focus on solidifying those basic concepts.
Hmm.
Like the add two numbers kind of exercises,
Right.
just to build confidence.
Yeah.
But others were arguing for these super complex abstract problems.
Oh, wow.
Like, what does adding even mean kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
It is, right? And it's interesting because that kind of gets at the difference between being able to do something versus truly understanding it.
Yeah, like procedural fluency versus conceptual understanding.
Exactly. And the discussion wasn't just about college either.
What else did they talk about?
Some people were talking about other ways to learn, like Math Academy.
Ah,
Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
A lot of people seem to like that.
Really? Why?
They said it was really well structured and that it used techniques like spaced repetition, which is supposed to be great for remembering things.
Interesting.
Some people even said it was better than just using like ChatGPT for math tutoring.
Really?
Yeah, because while ChatGPT can explain things, it doesn't really guide you through the practice in the same way.
Makes sense. You still got to do the work.
Exactly. And of course, MIT OpenCourseWare got a shout out too.
Oh, of course.
All those free online courses,
Yeah, amazing resources.
really highlighting that there's so many ways to keep learning.
Absolutely. And it really underscores that use it or lose it idea.
Right. It's about consistently engaging with challenging stuff no matter how you do it.
Exactly. So speaking of use it or lose it, let's get into the actual research.
Okay, yeah. The Hacker News thread linked to a scientific article. What did that have to say?
Well, it was titled SciAdV.ads1560.pdf, and it actually had some surprising findings.
Oh.
It was a longitudinal study, so they followed the same people over a long time.
Okay.
And they found that on average, cognitive skills actually increase until we're in our 40s.
Really? I thought it was all downhill after like 25.
That's what a lot of people think.
So it gets better. Then what?
Well, after the peak, around age 40, there's a slight decline in literacy and a slightly bigger decline in numeracy.
Okay.
But here's the key finding. The skills only declined at older ages for people who didn't use them much in their work or daily lives.
So people who weren't really challenging themselves.
Exactly. But the people who reported above average skill usage, like white-collar workers and those with higher education, their skills kept increasing even after their 40s.
Wow. So basically, if you keep your brain engaged, it doesn't have to decline.
It seems that way, yes. At least for certain skills.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. It's like that muscle analogy again. You know, if you work it, it stays strong.
Right. It also ties back to those earlier stories we talked about.
Yeah. The person studying linear algebra and the one getting their master's degree.
They were actively using those skills.
Exactly. They were challenging their brains.
And it seems like it really paid off.
It does, yeah.
And there was another interesting point about gender.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
The study found that women's numeracy skills were less dependent on how much they used them.
Really?
But high usage still helped to prevent decline.
Interesting. So it's a bit different for women, but staying engaged is still important.
Right. Now, there was also a comment from a software developer who mentioned feeling more tired doing those long coding sessions as they got older.
Ah, yeah. Does experience make up for that?
That's a good question. And a lot of people in the comments, other developers, said that it did.
Really?
Yeah, they said that while they might get tired more quickly, their experience helped them to work more efficiently.
I see. Like they could avoid common mistakes because they had seen them before.
Exactly. So they weren't having to figure everything out from scratch.
It's like working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Now, moving on from age, the conversation also got into other things that can affect how sharp we feel.
Oh, like what?
Well, a lot of people talked about how much their responsibilities affected them.
Responsibilities.
Yeah, like work and family,
Ah, yeah.
just having a lot on their plate.
Makes sense.
And some people thought that what we perceive as cognitive decline might just be us feeling overwhelmed by all the stuff we have to deal with.
Yeah, like it's not that our brains are actually getting worse. It's just that we have more to keep track of.
Right. And it's harder to focus.
Definitely.
And someone else brought up a really interesting point about autopilot.
Autopilot.
Yeah, the idea that if we get stuck in routines and don't really engage with our experiences, our brains might kind of stagnate.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about challenging ourselves, it's about being present.
Exactly. We have to really experience life, not just go through the motions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they talked about retirement, which is kind of related.
How so?
Well, if people retire and don't have any intellectual or social stimulation, they might experience more decline.
Ah, yeah. Like if they just stay home and watch TV all day.
Exactly. Versus someone who stays active, travels, volunteers, learns new things.
Right, right. Keep the brain active.
And of course, sleep came up too.
Oh, yeah. Sleep is so important.
Huge. We all know how foggy we feel when we don't sleep enough.
Absolutely. It affects everything.
It really does. And there was some discussion about things like puzzles and board games.
Oh, yeah. Like those brain training games.
Exactly. Some people thought those could help, although the research wasn't super clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that challenging your brain in different ways would be beneficial.
Right. And then the conversation went in a completely different direction.
Really? Where did it go?
Free college education.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. I guess the connection was about access to learning.
Ah, I see.
Like, if college was free, more people could keep learning throughout their lives.
Yeah, and that would support the whole use it or lose it idea.
Exactly. But of course, there were people who disagreed.
What did they say?
Well, they talked about the cost and whether it would be worth it.
Yeah.
And they pointed out that there are already lots of free resources available, like MIT OpenCourseWare.
True, true.
And they also made a good point that in-person learning offers more than just knowledge.
Right.
It's about the community, the
Mm.
social connections.
Yeah, totally.
And then the conversation got a bit more serious.
Oh, yeah. How so?
People started talking about the fear of cognitive decline, like the kind that comes with aging and diseases like Alzheimer's.
Ah, yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. It's a real fear for people.
Yeah.
And they were also talking about end-of-life wishes and the ethics around all of that.
Yeah, wow.
It's a really complex issue.
It is, and it highlights just how important it is to people to keep their minds sharp.
It really does. So, to wrap it all up, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from all of this?
Well, I think the main message is that there's a real connection between using our cognitive skills and keeping them strong.
Right. It's not just a myth.
Exactly. And it seems to be especially true for people who have mentally stimulating jobs or who keep learning new things.
So use it or lose it is actually backed up by research.
It is, yeah.
And age isn't the only factor.
Right. It's also about what kind of work we do, how much we learn, how social we are, our overall lifestyle.
It's all connected.
Absolutely. And while we have to acknowledge that there are things we can't control, like age-related diseases, there's also a lot we can do.
Right. We have some agency in all of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can choose to engage our minds and keep learning throughout our lives.
And so on that note, here's a final thought for you, our listener.
Okay.
What's one thing you can do in the coming weeks to intentionally challenge yourself mentally? Maybe it's finally reading that book you've been putting off, or taking an online course. Or maybe it's just having more deep conversations with the people around you.
Those are all great ideas.
Whatever it is, take that step and keep that brain active.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly.